In the previous two lessons, we implemented a couple of variables, but they've been the same type of variables, volatile integers. In this lesson, let's look at a different type. The goal of this lesson is to create a variable that will keep track of how many times our master gets rebooted. This is very useful information, especially if you return to a job site 2 years after you programmed it. You can see how many times the master processor rebooted. Let's begin. The first question I'll ask is, what are we going to use as the trigger to know if our master got rebooted? We covered this back in the IR programming lessons. If you said data event, you're correct, and the event handler we will use is online. So basically, we will create an online data event for the master device. I hope you realize we haven't defined our master device yet. Let's do it. I'll call it DV_MyMaster. Now, what will its DPS be? Device Port System. As we covered early on in this course, the device number for our master is 0. It will always be 0. It can never not be 0. Next, the port number is 1. And finally, our system number will keep it 0. So it reads DV_MyMaster gets 0:1:0. As a side note, 0 is also the device number we would use for any IP-controlled devices. The only difference would be the port number that we use. So, if we had a video conferencing system that we were interfacing with, we could talk to it over IP using the DPS of 0:3:0 or 0:4:0, etc. IP devices are covered in great depth in our Programmer 2 course. Now that we have our device defined, let's go create our data event. Scroll down to the button of our Define Event section and add a data event for the DV_MyMaster device. And, once again, the event handler we will use is online. Okay, so what do we wish to do when the master comes online? Well, we need to create a variable to store the number of times this event occurs. Let's scroll up to the Define Variable section. The whole point of this variable is to keep track of the number of times the master reboots. Therefore, what type of variable does this need to be? It can't be a volatile variable because every time the master reboots, a volatile gets reset back to 0. We need it to maintain its value through a reboot or through reloads of the code. We'll make it a persistent variable. What about the data type? We could use an integer, but if you remember, this is 16-bit and can only hold a number up to 65,535. Now, is this master going to be rebooted over 65,000 times? I doubt it, but we're talking the lifetime of this processor, so instead, let's use a long. Once again, a long is a 32-bit, and it can store a number between 0 and a little over 4 billion. I think it's safe to say the master won't be rebooted this many times. Let's give it a name. The Hungarian notation for a long is lowercase l. I'll name mine L Master Reboot Counter, followed by a semicolon. Scroll back down to our data event that we created. I'm going to add a note directly above this event so you know what this is if you look back on this code in the future. Okay, all that's left to do is add a single statement. L Master Reboot Counter plus plus. We'll learn more about the plus signs in a later tutorial. For now, just understand that every single time this statement executes, in other words, when the master processor comes online, the variable will be incremented by 1. So, if the value is 48 and the master gets rebooted, this statement executes and the new value is 49. And of course, because this variable is persistent, it will never get reset. Compile your code to make sure we don't have any errors. That's all there is to it. We'll be using variables much more in upcoming lessons, but for now, do you know what time it is? You guessed it, another exercise.